Welcome everybody to episode 51 of New Game Experience. My name is Juan Paolini and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cristian Caroli. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. Doing good, like Superman.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Because you, if you do
Superman
that's a Tracy Morgan joke. That's
exactly.
awesome.
Exactly.
Okay, you're doing well. Superman does good, son. Check up if you're in your grammar.
Exactly. And then, like some episodes later, he says he can't read. Fucking hilarious.
Oh my god, that is a very genius series. I really need to watch it in its entirety, but that's awesome.
It is really underrated. I think it should be as popular as The Office, and if not more. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean Tina Fey, Alec Baldwin, they're very comedic geniuses in my eyes.
Incredible.
Okay, so the topic for this episode is going to be very interesting, very personal, but I think that's going to make it all the more interesting. We're going to be talking about the topic of mental health and video games. So, of course, we're not like mental health professionals, so we're not going to really go into like the science of it and stuff like that. We're just going to focus on our experience, and we'll go into a couple of different like topics or interesting questions. So the first one that I wanted to begin with is kind of the more superficial part of it of the experience, which is like I believe that there's a differentiation when you talk about mental health, where there is like the use of mental topics as a narrative like device to move forward the story or to shape your story, which we can think of examples like whenever a character gets amnesia or whenever a character gets hallucinations. Those would be for me like the tropey kinds of uses, which is that doesn't make them bad, but it's not really what I wanted to make the topic of the episode about. What I really wanted to like focus on is like when the game really tries to say something, when they use mental health as a like general theme or general topic that kind of goes a little bit beyond. So before we get into like the games that I got inspired to talk about this and all that, what's your like? What do you think about, Christian, when you think about like mental health and video games? What comes to mind for you?
I'm crazy about video games.
That's good. I love that.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. I think that, I mean, as you said before, we're not doctors, but we're going to give you our medical opinions. So
exactly.
I do have to say that it's an escapist medium, video games. And it's a game that basically runs simulations, and they try to recreate realities, and the role that it has as a narrative medium, both in the player and in the characters. It's something that I think it's very tightly coupled, because on its core, video games are kind of like Skinner boxes, which is kind of like obviously, again, not a doctor, but the definition is kind of like Skinner box. It's like you do something to something, and then you get kind of like an immediate reward. And overall, that's what games are to some extent. It's like they're experiences that are like programmed and they're prefabricated, but you do get to experience a game into a way that links to what you perceive in reality. It's like you're not just sitting there; you're actively going through the game and executing actions. So there's a lot of responsibility in the media regarding like what it can do. So I think that's kind of like the baseline for how I see the idea of like mental health in video games. Like they have powerful tools to use it and access it, but at the same time, it's a game. So
yeah, exactly. But that leads me to the first question that I wanted to ask you, which is amazing. Which is, I mean, not amazing the question, amazing that you segued into it. Which is that, do you think that video games are maybe more effective at telling these stories or less effective than, let's say, books or movies or stuff like that? What do you think?
I think that it's hard to compare them, because the breadth of the work that you have to kind of like when you create a video game, it's so complex that it could to some extent be something that people really resonate with, but because it's a work that is created by so many people at the same time, and that it leverages in a lot of things that are beyond like communication. I think that, like, for example, if you take a game that's popular for being like kind of like a mental health game, like I don't know, Braid, that supposedly has like ingrained metaphors and stuff like that, and it's part of the traumas that the author created, had and used it to create a game. I think that it's not obvious to everyone that plays the game what the game will be about. Like, you really need to try to do an effort of understanding. Well, if you read a book that it's basically about depression or someone that is depressed, you're gonna immediately resonate with the character because they're either gonna be saying things that you never said before in that way, so it resonates with you and like amplifies your voice, or you just like, this is me, it me.
Okay.
So
So, are you saying, and I think that that's a very valid point, that because we're literally gamifying a narrative or making an experience interactive and all that, it kind of maybe abstracts it too much from the original idea, at least in Braid's case, right?
it could be. I
Okay.
think that, for example, there are games that we play during very stressful situations, and they represent like an outlet of our emotions. Like, there you're just like, okay, I'm gonna chill here, but then if you experience something that brings you back to what you're feeling in the real world, then it's amplified. Like,
Absolutely.
and I like to put the example of like when I was going through a breakup when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is kind of like a game about, you know uh loss, in a way that, this is spoiler alert.
Exactly.
Basically, I remember like when my horse died
Oh.
on Red Dead Redemption 2, and it was like, fuck this game. And this is a cool story. I had the same horse from the very fucking beginning of the game. At some point, you go and pick up a horse, and it's not that good. And then the game is like, oh, you should do this shit, you should do this and that, and it's like you can get these other horses, and there's like, and I was like, I don't give a shit about this. I already have a horse, and like I thought this kind of like blends in with the character. Like, he has a horse, he doesn't need, and then halfway through the game, you're just like dying. So it's like, I don't. Why would this guy buy another horse? And I think that, and I also had some friends visiting, and they were, like, while we were waiting to go out, I was playing a little bit of Red Dead Redemption 2, and they were like, oh, you can buy another horse? And then, yeah, I'm gonna buy a horse. And I bought a horse, and my horse name was called Dog. Uh, and as soon as I walked out from I don't know, from the stables, I was like uncomfortable. I was like, this is not my fucking horse, and just like returned, got my horse back, and then when he died, I was like, shit, this
Hmm.
is this is rough. And I remember like I used to like bawling and crying. It's like, I need to pause the fucking game because my horse just died, and that is something that is impossible for to happen anywhere else. Like, it's impossible for a movie to make me feel that level of ownership
Hmm.
around something. I don't own it. Like, there's no way I can own a horse in a movie or in a book. So that sense of loss that I felt with the horse, I think it was something unique from the media, and in a way, like, pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I remember specifically with Red Dead Redemption 2 that there was this dialogue that Arthur Morgan says that he's like, "Hey, girl," or "Hey, boy," and the way that he said it to the girl when it's a female horse, I got so like attached to the way he spoke to it. Maybe it's because I have a female dog. I don't know. I have no idea. But I remember I bought a male horse, and I immediately was like, no, I have to have the dialogue where he's talking to the female horse because I feel the same thing. And I think I also stuck with like the same horse for the whole game because it's like you say, like you feel like you're kind of betraying your horse if you use another one.
Yeah, and it would be hard to me to believe that this guy Arthur is like buying horses
Mm.
all over the place. Like, he couldn't give he couldn't care less. Like, what, like, as long as it's a loyal horse, she would just have that horse. Like, that's how I was picturing it, and I thought that I was kind of like meta gaming the Red Dead Redemption 2 with that. Like, it's just like, I know I can do all this crap, but I'm not gonna do it because the character won't do it, or at least I felt that way. But I think that the game does lets you do that kind of like a lot, even though it's very sandboxy about it. It's not like you can do this or you can do that. It's just like ingrained decisions that, in a way, because it's such a great game, such a polished gem. I think that, for example, again, like regarding the topic of mental health, I think that it's the only game that I played where I feel the character is dying. Like you're in a, I think it's like it says you have tuberculosis, and then it's
Yes.
like, well, there's just no cure for this, you know. Like, and at some point felt it's weird because like as soon as I found out, I was going through kind of like the same stages that the character was doing. Like the first one was denial, like no way he has some. I was literally thinking there's probably kind of like a side quest with some of the Indian friends, and then, well, Native American, and from the Native American friends they're gonna cure him or some shit like that, and he's like, nope, it's not gonna happen. This guy's just gonna fucking die because this is what happened back then, and it just bearing with that, it was like, wow, until the very end. But like in the last mission where he's like, you go live your life, don't make the same mistakes I did, he says that to John,
John. Yeah.
and then he's like, wow, like I accept it, like this guy, there's no, it doesn't make sense to do anything else. So that's pretty crazy for a game to do.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I remember, just to relate what you were saying, is that when I found out that I had tuberculosis in the game, I immediately searched when the cure was invented, and I was like,
You
God
googled
damn
it.
it! Yeah, I was like,
You
fuck.
googled it. You were like
Because
googling Arthur's symptoms. You're like, oh fuck my life. Google is right.
and I think that the cure was not like it was not like 50 years later. I believe it was like 10. So it was like, come on, if you could hold like a little bit more. But yeah, no.
Tuberculosis killed everyone in history. It's insane.
Yes.
Like whenever you read a book, it's like people either died of old age,
Mm,
or they died of tuberculosis, or they died being alcoholics. Like
exactly.
that's how you go. That's how you go out back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that was. I think that these are games that are not just like, obviously Red Dead Redemption is not a game about mental health,
Not at
but
all.
like I wouldn't, if someone were to like describe Red Dead Redemption 2, I wouldn't be like, well, it's about lost mental health, it's just, but some
No,
games
but
are.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can actually get a little bit into that, because I feel that that's like the most, in a way, superficial way of describing it, and I wanted to go like from like micro to macro to go to the deep stuff a little later. So I will ask you about the whole breakup thing, because I think that's going to be very, very interesting. But I wrote down a couple of games here that I think do a very good job of depicting mental health in an interesting way. And I kind of avoided the Black Opses of the world, which, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Black Opses, but it's like you get,
What are the numbers, Mason? What do
yeah,
they
why the
mean?
numbers, basically. Yeah, it's like it's kind of cool when you're playing it, but it's not really original. It's not really saying anything. So I just went past those. And actually, the game that inspired me to do this episode really was Psychonauts 2. I talked a little bit about it last episode, and I'm not really going to reveal anything here because I feel that, I mean, I'm a big fan of going in with no spoilers. I think that's kind of a general opinion, but I mean, some people don't care. But like, it goes from whimsical things or things that are funny. Like, for example, there is an enemy that you find like in the first level, so it's not really a spoiler either, that is called regret, because you only have combat when you're in somebody's brain. Outside the people's brains, you have more exploration. So inside there, some of the two, I think the actual literal two first enemies you encounter are censorship, which is like a guy that's like
With some stamps.
trying to stamp you to death. Yeah. And then there's one that's called regret. And this one is described as it wears you down, or it brings you down. And it literally has like a pound or like a kilo thing of metal where it puts it on top of you. So they have this way of, like, the writing is pretty clever in that, I mean, it's named regret, and the description of the creature has to do with what it is, like actual regret.
Yeah.
And I throughout the whole game, you have things that I think that are very ingenious, but like very small. All to like from that like little level to the level of the whole story going into the direction of a very deep thing, or maybe you encounter a character where what you live through when you're inside his or her brain
Yeah.
is something that is a very important realization that has to do with maybe denial, self-acceptance, and things like that. And that is why I really recommend this game. Other than that, it's really really fun. But this is the special nectar, if you want to call it something, that this game really has.
Secret sauce.
Secret sauce, exactly. So I have a couple more examples, but what do you have any examples of like a mental depiction that you saw in a game that really struck you or something?
I think that in general, I find that most AAA titles, they do a very poor job on, kind of like, just even talking about mental health. So it's hard for me. Like, I think that Hellblade is a game that basically is about mental health and loss and like being trapped in your own thoughts, and it really, I actually think that that's a great game in general. And if anything, it's weighed down by their own gameplay mechanics. Like, it's the type of game where I remember like you had to do something with like some symbols and puzzles, and it's like like this is irrelevant. Like, I remember like thinking the game and just saying like I'm not playing this because it's fun. I think like also kind of like the combat was a bit clunky, but it was like everything else is so good that these things that are just like puzzled in a way that they're obviously designed by a level designer, you're like, it's just boring.
Mhm.
I understand like they have the skills to do that because they made that studio Ninja. What's the name?
Team
Ninja.
Ninja?
No, I think it's.
No,
Let me
Ninja
double
Theory,
check. Ninja
right?
Theory.
Yeah,
They,
that's that.
they the games they make, they're just fucking insane. But I think this one had like this gameplay layer with all the puzzles that was like, eh. But again, I think that it depicts it in a way that it causes the same attrition that a character is going through in yourself, and I think that in that sense, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's actually a game that's also on my list here, that you can of course see. And I think that this is like one of the most interesting examples, next to Psychonauts. The ones that are below it are really like very lesser than the other two. And this one, to anybody who doesn't know, this is a great game by, as Christian said, Ninja Theory, and they really went through the trouble. I recommend to everybody who hasn't, no, if you've already played it, because I think if you watch this before, you maybe get spoiled on something. But to watch a documentary of some behind the scenes, I believe the game comes with it, and if not, it's definitely on YouTube. But they kind of go through the whole process of their research on how they interviewed psychoanalysts or psychotherapists. I'm not sure which one is the right one, but they interviewed like mental health professionals. They interviewed people who suffer from psychosis, and they tried to make the experience of you as a player as accurate as possible in terms of the types of hallucinations that these people suffer from, which could be from visual to audio. And that's why they recommend, like, when you turn on the game, the first thing it says is play this with headphones, because that's the way you're gonna get the full experience. And I commend you, please, to do that, because it's very very important that you play it with headphones, because it really makes a difference. I think it's the only game that I can think of that really like rises above with a specific set of like headphones and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, like they had these periodical meetings where they would meet with all these people and show them what they were working on, and like verify that it's in a way like works as a game and also works as a way to kind of raise awareness of this whole thing. And I think that the main thing that video games have, we've discussed it before, right? But the main thing that video games have that neither books or music or anybody has is the way that you're like literally putting yourself in the shoes of whatever character you're playing as. And that is a good tool for us to, yeah, to experience another person's either story or maybe what they suffer from. And in this case, they do a good job of that. I remember, just like as a side note, once when we did these episodes in Spanish, we talked about this game, and somebody commented on the video saying that they thought that this was a very like them taking advantage of the British government's like grants to use the mental health aspect to do that. And I thought like, I mean, it's not impossible that they did that, but it's a very cynical way to look at it. But okay.
It's I would be cautious of thinking that you can, like, if you're gonna steal money from the government, the last thing I would build would be a game. Like, it's
Yes.
so fucking massive to ship a game that they be in the end like, this wasn't worth it. We might as well just ask the money to make like a Netflix show or like a podcast or something that does not involve, a multidisciplinary team and years of work without seeing the efforts of your effort, the fruits of your effort. I think that games are ever more trying to be more welcoming, because I think that there are several layers of mental health in games, and I think that the one that is harder to find is the one that we're talking about, like a game that it's on its core about mental health, like on its core about traumas, on its core about because because there's also the idea that why would someone would play video games, why would someone escape the reality in order to deal with their problems. And I think that that's something that a lot of people just don't see it. I think it was Kojima was mentioning recently that he wanted to license some. He would license more things from literature, like quotes and characters and stuff like that. But whenever he would talk to the state and stuff like that, they would tell them no, because it's a video game and people should and whatnot. And I think that that's some of the reasons why, in the end, people like don't really explore that as much as it happens with other books or movies. There's like, this movie's about depression, and then like, wow, let's go see it. Like, that doesn't happen that much with games. Games is like Hellblade on its core. Like, we can say it's a game about psychosis and traumas and like and whatever. But in the end, it's also like kind of like a Viking action game. Like
Yeah.
it is a fun game. Like, if it has a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But do you feel that necessarily the fact that it's fun, and which it sounds like a very weird word to use when we're talking about mental health, but do you think the fact that it's fun detracts from the, let's say, intention to raise awareness or to use mental health in a positive way? Do you think that
No,
happens?
no. I think
Okay,
that
okay,
if anything, it's the opposite. Like,
okay.
when you have a game like The Last of Us 2, where you end up finishing the game being like, oh, the fuck, I can't play this again. I don't like anyone. You know, it's also like, oh, this game is trying to do something different, and it's a depressing game. Like, I think that whenever I think about like most of the games I play, like most of them are like uplifting. They
Hmm.
it's like, even they had sad moments. Like, the vast majority of these games that have been very emotional to me, they are about cool stuff. And
Yeah.
but then you have a game like The Last of Us 2, which I think it's a great game, but it's not a game that is gonna like help your mental health.
No,
Like,
not at all.
like, if you're depressed, I wouldn't be like, just don't play this game, bro. Like that type of thing. But on the opposite, I think the first one is in a way very, very uplifting, and that's why I think that ultimately people really kind of like enjoy the first one so much, because it's like, even though everything is shit, you could still find some happiness and purpose. And I think that overall, that's a very positive message,
Yeah.
which I don't think I can say for the second one. I think the second one is about like something completely different, and some things to say. It's like so massive that I don't even know what it is
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I mean, we like, to me that game that I'm talking about, Last of Us Part 2,
Mm.
that game was an experience that was so intense emotionally, because I really was invested with Ellie in the beginning and Joel, and seeing their story, seeing the other characters' perspective. We're gonna go into a little bit of spoiler. I mean, I'm not gonna go
Chan chan
100%, but
chan.
you, just so you know. But like, in the end, I believe it's a game about, I mean, revenge, of course, about hate, and about how you can literally, and you may criticize this if it's too on the nose, but I thought it was a cool touch, how you can literally lose a piece of yourself when you like get in this rabbit hole of this obsession with revenge and stuff like that.
You're sick
I think
bitches.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like it's I mean, some people I saw some very valid criticisms where like the whole empathy thing is should be kind of obvious. Like it's obvious that everybody has their own story, blah blah blah. But I mean, I I don't think I've ever seen a video game do it in this way, and I can't think. I think there are examples of movies, but I can't really think of one right now that was so impactful. And of course, I'm gonna go back to the same point. I mean, the fact that you're doing the things, you're in the player, sorry, in the character's shoes, makes it all a little bit, to me at least, more impactful because I it feels like I'm making the decisions. Of
Yeah.
course, it's all scripted, but that's how it kind of
I
is.
think that those games are kind of like weird in the sense that you get to experience a lot of emotions that are like scripted. Whether you make the decisions or not, they are scripted. I was playing. I finished Mass Effect 2 finally, and like in the last mission, you can have people. Some people might die if you fuck up, and I did fuck up, and it's like I'm reloading this shit. I still have another game upcoming.
Yes.
I'm not getting like this character killed because I just picked the wrong idiot for a task. No fucking way. And and that wasn't like particularly emotional because like it's a role playing element. And I think that there's kind of like a difference between like role playing, like the decisions, and kind of like analyzing how you act under certain conditions are scripted. But when it comes to kind of like your real world behavior, I think that there's so much that you can do with games in order to refine your behavior that they should be kind of like, I don't want to say like everyone should play video games, but to be honest, like everyone should play video games because like some skill sets that you get there in such a articulated and fun way, they can help you deal with your mental health. And I think that one of those elements is dying a lot. I finished reading All You Need Is Skill, which is the book that is based on is this movie called Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, where it's like he's fighting aliens with Emily Blunt and whatnot, and every time he dies, he comes back to life. There, it's based on a novel from a Japanese author, and he has in the foreword he just says, um, "Look, I grew up playing video games, and I always wanted to, write a novel, an action novel where everything is just like action and dying and coming back to life and and I think that discipline of losing, you can only get it from two places. One of them is like sports, like you get your ass kicked out, Saturday the soccer team, or like you lose your tennis match, or they kick your ass in karate. But in video games, you can constantly lose. Like you can, and if you can either become like a salty troll and then hate everyone, or you can understand what losing feels like, and then you just no longer smack the couch because you're like, okay, I need to improve. Otherwise, this will continue happening. And I think that skill set is almost impossible to get like anywhere else that it's not video games, And that's something that can really help your mental health, for example.
I totally agree. I think that one of the things that I think is wrong about at least our education system, which I think it's most of the Western one, is that it teaches us the mistakes are bad, and it doesn't teach us that we can learn from mistakes. Of course, I know that kind of shifting that is very, very complicated, and I don't really have the answers at the moment. But I think that what you're saying is amazing. Like death in video games implies a mistake, and how can I learn from this, and how can I do better next time? And yeah, I mean, you and I are big Dark Souls fans. That's one of the big pillars of what we're talking about. But it really applies to all video games, really.
Yeah, like for example, imagine this is kind of like something that's going to apply like to education, because like, education is kind of like one of the hot spots of people going fucking insane. If you fail a test at your university, you have to wait at least 6 months to do that test again. So, and it's like, why not do it immediately? Like if I failed the math test, okay, come back tomorrow, do it again. Then like, what's gonna be different? Like what's the why not immediately do it? Like if one where you have to articulate the things better, and just I'll explain what you did wrong, you learn, you present it again, then you pass, and that's it. And then you constantly, and then you could, in a way, micro strategize your way out of your education. Like, not everything has to be one size fits all. And I think the same applies even like for job interviews. You can apply for a job, and if you don't get it, you only need one yes. I think that's the cool thing about certain objectives, like understanding like when you need one yes and when you don't. Like, I don't know, like something that is like getting an Olympic medal. It's not like you only need one Olympic medal. It's like, okay, there's only a time frame in your life where you're going to be a very competitive athlete, and if you don't get it in that year, you're probably going to have to wait 4 years, and then you're not going to build your career around that goal. But if your goal is to be like platinum in like in any rank, in some ranked system, just fucking do it. Like, just champion through and trust the process and blah blah blah. And I think that video games are really good for that. Like, most people that I know that they play competitive games, multiplayer mostly, they're either insane or they're very disciplined. Like,
Okay.
they deal with losing far better than most people.
Yeah, and if this person, I mean, presumably, if this person is not playing video games and maybe, I don't know, loses a contract, if he's a freelancer or whatever, he's gonna be better at dealing with that as well. Like that's gonna translate to other parts of your life. I wouldn't think that that's gonna compartmentalize only to games.
Of
So
course.
yeah, 100%. So I just wanted to like uh, blow past through these other games because I think they're worth mentioning. One is the Evil Within series. I recently, a couple months ago, we talked about it. I played the
Mhm.
second one, and I thought that it was. I mean, it was better than I expected it to be. I think. I mean, I played the first one years ago, and I don't really remember much, but I think that I would say that the second one is better. And the thing that ties it to mental health is that you have this machine sort of Inception like, kind of like Psychonauts as well, but much more gritty, where you go into people's minds and you have this thing, and you also are a person like you play as Sebastian Castellanos, who has a story both from the first game and of other things that have happened in the interim. And you're dealing with these demons, and these demons materialize in the game as actual demons, like enemies and stuff. And I thought that was very very interesting. There's another one here that love to talk about this game because I think that it's a hidden gem as well. People don't really remember this game, and I thought that for its time it was so forward thinking, which is Eternal Darkness. Did you play that?
Yeah, in the GameCube.
Exactly.
I
This
remember I
was
remember parts of it. Like, it's hard. It's one of the it's one of those games where I remember like being a kid while I was playing it, so I wasn't really up to speed what the game wanted from me. But I remember being like pretty excruciating, pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know, this was a game developed by Silicon Knights, I believe. That they no longer exist because I believe they also did the Twin Snakes remake for Metal Gear Solid, which was also really good. But then they did this game called True Human, which was, I think, a very ambitious idea, and I played that game. It was not very good. But back
It
to
was
Eternal
it was
Dark.
kind of like a, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like a God of War, right?
Yeah, they tried to do this whole futuristic Norse mythology kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it did not work at all. I mean, very, very disappointing. But back to Eternal Darkness, the reason why I tied it to mental health is because, like most games, you have a health bar, you have a blue mana slash magic bar, but then you have a green bar that is a sanity bar.
I remember
And
that.
yeah, and the things that would happen if you would let your sanity bar go too low were very awesome and fourth wall breaking. Like, for example, we have one that they kind of stole from Hideo Kojima, or maybe Hideo stole it from them, which is that your game just goes black and it says video on top. And back in those days, that was like the default way of it showing the way you were gonna play. Like, if your console turned off, that's what would show on the TV actually. There was also like you could lose your head literally, like you would get decapitated and you could still
I
walk.
remember that one. You would
Like
have it. It's insane because, like, well, pun intended. It's insane because you had to live with that. Like, it's not. I remember it not being like a game breaking dynamic. It was just it was just insane. It was just like, Jesus, what is going on with this game? And there was like, I remember like there was a lot of it, and sometimes it was confusing. In my experience playing it, and I think that's, I mean, it's kind of like ties in well to what you're saying regarding like, or maybe what I was saying at the beginning of like regarding like it's still being a game, is that I wanted to finish it. Like all those things about the insanity, I was kind of like more than dealing with them than appreciating them. You know, I was like, why is the game getting on the way of me having playing a game? You know, and
Okay.
obviously like my opinion has changed, but that game was one of those that I was like, wow, this is just I'm going crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to mention that there was one that I think was the meanest one, at least if you're a very like neurotic gamer, where they had this like message pop up which looked official from Nintendo, which said that like your GameCube is about to overheat or something like that, and you should turn it off. And I kind of I think I almost fell for that one, but yeah. It's a very interesting game. I have a hard time believing that nobody has copied this mechanic in like 20 years. I mean, it's very strange because it's very, very good. And then there's Amnesia Dark Descent, which is a very, very good game. The first one. Only the first one. The second one is awful. And the third one I haven't played. And
Why
this
didn't you
one of
like the second one? What was so different?
I mean, it was handled by a different team. The guys called it the Chinese Room. They also did Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which was also a game that I did not like. So I mean, I already have like the confirmation that these people I do. I mean, I appreciate it, but I don't like it. And I don't know, like I don't really remember like the specifics of what I hated it about it, but I remember being very disappointed in the end. And it's one of those few games, because I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but I always try to look at the good, even if it's something I don't enjoy. And this was a game that I regretted spending my time with. Like I thought I wasted my time playing this game, and
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, the first one is really good. I really recommend it, even though it may have aged not so well, because I mean I think it's like 10 years old
it's
already.
old. It's old.
Yeah, it's very old.
And I
But
think that it's a genre that also like got a lot of innovation recently,
yes,
like this survival super horror thing, like things like Soma or Outlast. Their games are just like they're fucking scary.
yes,
But I think that the idea of like you actually losing your memory was kind of like a big mechanic on the first one. I didn't finish it, but I played a lot of it, and the thing that I do remember from that game is like if you leave it for a while and you try to come back, it's very hard. I mean, it's
yeah.
like you're the one with amnesia, but you actually need to like hold the mystery in your head in order for it to be fun. Otherwise, it's just like, okay, what is going on type of game.
Yes, 100%. But they also had this cool thing where, I mean, it was one of those horror games where you can't fight, you have to run, which is very, very scary. It makes it's like Outlast. I don't know if you played that one, but that was also
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, I played that one.
And I think they also had this thing where if you stayed in the dark for too long, you would start to also lose your sanity a little bit. So they kind of pseudo copied Eternal Darkness, but not quite. And you would start to see things and get a little bit of hallucinations. So that's also pretty cool. But again, I mean, when you compare it to what we've been talking about, like even Eternal Darkness, Hellblade, and Psychonauts, it kind of falls a little bit short in,
Yeah.
in the whole thing of mental health. But I still wanted to just pass by it. So let's go into our personal experiences of dealing with our own mental health, and yeah, how games have maybe helped us, or what has happened around those topics. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, games have always been a social tool, and I would say like a mental health tool. They're definitely an escape, and they're like stress diffusers. Like whenever you're stressed, you can always just like pop up a game, play a few matches, and then come back, just kind of like re rejuvenated. And during the pandemic, a lot of people remember the pandemic as the lockdowns, like you just being, like trapped in your house and like in this really small repetitive corners that you would have to see every day. And for me it's weird because for me it feels like it was kind of like this open time where I would just like spend most of my days just kind of like rumbling around places in virtual worlds. Like I played Shadow of the Colossus, I played Breath of the Wild again, I played Ghost of Tsushima as well. I tried to play Death Stranding and I didn't like it again. So for me, it's weird because it's like it doesn't feel like it's not kind of like a trauma. For me, it almost feels like an open world time where I would just like digitally inserted myself in these places. Like I don't remember it like the specifics of being locked out, but I feel like if I was inside of a virtual world, you know.
Yeah, I think that that's a very great point because we already know that there are a lot of numbers. I don't have them with me right now, but you can look at how much video game sales and like video game console and game sales like rose astronomically almost during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and it's because of that same reason. Like people really didn't have much to do at home. And there comes a point where you've watched all your Netflix, or maybe you start like feeling it repetitive, which happens, and then you turn to games, or if you're a gamer and you already have that in your life. And yeah, I mean, this helped a lot of people probably keep their sanity, because I mean, I don't really have this problem. I'm a recluse by nature, I think. Yeah, I don't really go a lot out a lot. I actually, my favorite place in the world has always been my home, my house, wherever that is. And so to me, and I'm also a freelancer, so I work from home even before the pandemic. So to me, my life didn't really change that much. But like for other people, like having a sense of, maybe like for example, Animal Crossing was huge. Like I don't think Nintendo could have manufactured anything that could have got them anywhere close
A
to what.
better virus.
Exactly, that better virus. But like a lot of people found a lot of solace in having this virtual world where they could come each day and they had something to look forward to, and they could
Yeah.
maybe have a little bit more of a routine. I'm sure this was significant to a lot of people.
Yeah, and also the social aspect of not
Exactly.
being alone. Like for me, it was a lot of my friends, they picked up Fortnite. We were already like kind of playing Fortnite before that, but then a lot of my friends are like started, okay, let's see what this is about. And the fact that you could just jump into a match with your friends and then just, have some friendly banter, because like those games, like the most successful games, something that they have in common right now is that there's a lot of communication. Like
Yes.
it's collaborative and like more or less action. But I think that battle royale games, they do a good job at just having these open times where you're just like, yeah, by the way, what's up? Then you're just like moving from one point of interest to another point of interest, and then just kind of like having a social experience.
100%. I think that's something that doesn't really get that much credit because it's kind of a metagame kind of thing, or not even a metagame thing. It's a kind of a exo game thing because it's not even part of the game, but it still happens, right? Like, I don't really know how to explain that, but I think it kind of makes sense, right? Like most people that really love multiplayer shooters, especially with the pandemic and everything, they take the opportunity in these times to kind of shut their brains off for a second and just talk to people. Maybe it's friends they have had for a long time. Maybe you even meet people in these games. So I
Yeah.
think that's, yeah, that's an invaluable thing. Like I think that's the only thing that draws me to these games, because I'm 99% single player guy, but sometimes I hop on to Warzone with a couple of friends, and I don't really care about winning. I just care about having a good time with them.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like if you jump, that's the other thing about battle royale games, that I think that it's you have to relief of victory is not guaranteed. Like it's like you jump into a game and the higher you end up, the better. But you could lose, and sometimes you could win. But if you play a battle royale game and you want to win every single game, you're just insane.
Oh no.
Like there's no way of saving you. Like even the best streamers and competitive players, they have like a 30% win rate. Like there's no way that you're gonna win more games than you lose. So I think that's super healthy regarding like social dynamics and expectation. And most importantly, I think that one thing that separates competitive players from non-competitive player is ladder anxiety, which is the idea that if you continue playing, you're going to lose, and then you're going to drop from the ladder. But then if you don't play more, then you're not going to get better, and then you're just going to get yourself stuck there. And I think that there are a lot of like there's a long path and like a lot of toolings that you can pick up in order to get that then you can use like throughout your life. I'm a big fan of multiplayer games precisely for that, because you just like, okay, like I used to, when I picked up, I used to play a lot of Hearthstone, like very competitively. And I remember like when I first started playing, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna play ranked games. I'm gonna play my shitty decks, in casual mode and see what happens. And then it was always like afraid of like going into ranked. And then it's like it's psychological, because there's literally no difference. It's just like one gives me a magic number, the other doesn't. Like it doesn't matter. And getting through over that, it's just so cool. There's a book I recommend that is called The Inner Game of Tennis, and talks about basically competitive gaming and like from the using tennis as a tool. And I think that it's such a strong suit for as an experience. And like it helped me like on 2000, I think it was 2018, I reached legend in Hearthstone after 3 years playing. And it wasn't like because I paid for the best decks, like I had the best cards. It's pretty metaphorical, but I think it lines up well. Like I always had kind of like the best cards. I knew what the decks were, and I knew like how many games I needed to play in order to get to that achievement. But I never like got around and really sank the time into it. Like it was always chaos. And then when I approached it with discipline and whatnot, it was like, oh shit, I look at this. And not only that as well, I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast, but like I used to be a bit more fat than I am right now, considerably. And one of the ways I lost weight is like I would just go into a treadmill, put Hearthstone, and start playing while I was running on the treadmill. And eventually I didn't need Hearthstone anymore. I was just like, okay, I could either watch something on Netflix or just like do a different exercise or but I hacked my brain into the discipline of like the only way I will do this is if I do this and this and this. Like if I go to the gym like one time a week, then I'm not gonna get any results. And that's something that most people don't really um, understand unless they've been through the journey. And I think I've been through that journey mostly thanks to video games.
That's awesome, man. I think that's really, really cool, and also a super smart way to, like you said, hack your brain. I love that term because it's literally what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
tricking your brain into like relating exercise to something fun, right? To something cool. Yeah, it's awesome. So in my case, I think I have two main things where I relate like personal experiences with video games and stuff like that. And one of them would be, or well, yeah, I'm gonna go with this first because I'm gonna try to do it chronologically. I think that makes more sense. So I've had a couple of breakups in my life. Some of them harder than others. One of them was really, really hard because I'll go in order. So I had a breakup back in Caracas, which, I mean, no breakup is really easy, right? I mean, even if you're the one doing the breakup or whatever, there's still, at least in my experience, like you're not really happy about doing it, even if it's maybe ultimately for the best, right? And I remember that the game that accompanied me through this journey, and when I think about the game, I like these emotions come as well, is The Witcher 2, which came to Xbox 360. And what is funny about that is that the next breakup was in 2015 with The Witcher 3. So it's like every time Geralt comes around, I have to watch my girlfriend at the time and be like, are we good?
You're like, hey, CD Projekt, I need some progress reports. Like
Exactly.
what is the specific release dates that you have in mind?
Exactly. And by the way, I just wanted to pop this right in. It came in the mail yesterday.
Oof, you're gonna have so much fun.
Liar.
Imagine that, the Xbox One version.
Yes. But as I said on Twitter, I'm gonna put a post-it on it that says "Do not open until next gen patch comes," which I will too. Because and I also bought this because I saw it was very cheap and I really wanted
The Definite Edition, the remake.
Yep, the remake.
Yeah, That's another game that also like I think obviously like, it's not about mental health. It's a mafia game, but I do remember like being the first serious game that I've ever played. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
game that was kind of like mature, really mature subjects. Like it
Mm-hmm.
didn't appeal to being just a game. I think that overall, like that, the main writer of that game, Daniel Babra, he is the one that is the director of creator of Kingdom Come Deliverance,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of like one of these hyper realistic RPGs
Yeah.
that I didn't like, by the way.
Oh,
But we can go into that. Like, we should have an episode like about realistic realism in games.
awesome. I'll
But
write that down.
write that one down, like realism in games. But I think that in a way that there is the and now that you're talking like about breakups and whatnot and like the experience that we attach to games, I think that they I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me they serve as a way of like not only escaping but also like sinking, like while you're playing you're like sinking in everything, you know. You might be just like riding your horse and then you're like, yeah, well, I guess that was it, you know, like X amount of years and well, it's over now. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, what I'm gonna do next? And you're just like, you know, you don't have a horse in real life, or probably you're not driving around, so you're just like in your horse there in whatever is that. I don't remember like what The Witcher 2 was map was.
It was Cadwin and Flotsam and Jetsam
Mm.
and some. I mean, those were some of the cities that you
Yeah,
drove through.
yeah, exactly. I remember. Yeah, because it wasn't like massively open world.
No, it was more linear. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. But yeah, I think that those games especially because also they take a lot of time. Like it's not like you finish it in 4 hours. Like I think it's hard for you unless you're literally arguing the same day. Just like and then I went home and played. I don't know a way out, and I was like, oh shit, I don't have someone to play this game with. And I think that they're games that they take a few months of your life, so they're both like connected.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the other thing I wanted to relate to this is because it kind of ties in with the other experience that I had that was really life changing, which is I wanted to say life as an immigrant. I think well, you and I both share
Mm.
this. I mean, we're on the same city, but we both come from Caracas, and I'm gonna go ahead and assume that we didn't really emigrate because we wanted to. Like it's not a decision that came
Exactly.
willingly.
There were not that many alternatives. We didn't do. It's like it's not bad, but it's not like we had a lot of options.
Yeah, exactly. Like just to give a little bit of context. I mean, not politically because that's gonna be a whole hour
Exactly.
of
It's
yeah,
just
no,
another episode.
hell no. But like at the time that I was living in Venezuela, it was like a 2011, 2012. I was working as like I would wake up at like 7 a.m. No, no, no. I would wake up at 6 a.m. Go and teach a Pilates class at like 7:30. I didn't have a car, so I would have to go like move in multiple buses, which in Venezuela is I'm not gonna say it's harder to move like that because you can really get almost anywhere, but it's a little bit more chaotic. And you
Yeah.
you kind of know what I'm talking about. And so I would go and teach like a couple of classes. Then I would go. I was a ballet dancer back in Caracas, so I would go to the company, rehearse and do classes and everything. Then I would go to an audio engineering studio, do some work in there because I also studied that. And at night I would teach more Pilates classes in a studio that was like over there. So I this was like my day to day, and I did not have enough money to like rent a place. I did not have much expectations of where my career was gonna go. Like I could have maybe had my own Pilates studio, which I really have come to realize a couple of years now that I really that would have been hell for me. That wouldn't have been what I wanted to do. And so like I kind of saw my life and I was like, this is going nowhere. Like I'm not gonna go up. It's gonna stay the same, and I'm working my ass off. So I was like, okay, the only thing I can think of is getting out of here because the main like there's a lot of limits to your liberty in Venezuela, but the one that was most frustrating for me, at least on my day to day, was the economical one. Like
Yeah.
the fact that yeah, what I just explained. So yeah, I applied for a scholarship here in Barcelona, which I was very lucky to get, and that's why I came here and blah blah blah. So the other thing I have to kind of get a little bit of context is the way we cannot use our money in abroad. Like there's a thing called like exchange
Currency exchange control. That's how I explain it.
Exactly, currency exchange control, which basically means you have to ask for permission to use your own money. It's not a grant. It's permission to use your own money outside of the country. So for the first year studying, I was lucky enough again to get it. And you, as you know, when you have that, you're pretty much set because you're basically, if you have the money back home, you can kind of live.
You can leave.
Yeah,
you can eat food, have a rooftop. Exactly. Those amazing capitalistic principles.
Exactly.
That's how privileged you become once they accept that they let you use your own money.
Exactly. It's pretty sad. And just in my case, I didn't really have like a wealthy parent or a wealthy uncle or anything that would kind of serve as the thing where the trapezists, when they fall on. I had none of that, like no cushion.
A safety net.
Exactly, safety net. That's you 2 words to describe what I had to describe with like 20. Yeah, thank you, safety net.
Yeah.
So I'll be quick. So yeah, the first year I had that, and I came with a girlfriend, like to do the life together over here. The next year, I did not get the permission to use my own money. Things were going not great with this girlfriend because we were both living as immigrants. Life changes. It's very hard. It's like living as an immigrant. You'll tell me if you agree. It's kind of you go through a grieving process, which is like losing a loved one in sort of way, because you say goodbye to your life, and you say goodbye to your friends, and then your family is very, very far. And yeah, it's a lot of things, because as I said, we didn't really do this willingly. We did it because we had to. If we wanted to have the life that we were looking for.
It's very aggressive to like move to another country. Like I see it with some of my friends. Like whenever I go to a wedding and I see like my normal friends that they have kind of like families and family friends, and everyone gets together because they're in the same city. Like they just have to drive 20 minutes to go to that celebration. It's just like, I'm never having that. Like, so it is. And also like when I remember like when the PS4 came out, like I think it was around 2013.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oof, I don't know if I can really afford it. Like, and when I say like, I don't know if I can afford it, I don't say it as, is this within the budget? I mean, like, if I do this, I might be negative numbers in my bank account, and they're going to charge me more money, and then like, what the fuck? I can't afford it, that type of thing. And I also had roommates, so it was like, should we buy it like together? Like, I don't know. It was just so different from today. Not that I am rich, but I definitely, if I'm like, I would like to buy a Series S, I do it because it makes sense, like, or because I want it. Like, it's not like you're gonna. But back then it was just like impossible.
Unthinkable, yeah. No, I remember that. Like, there was a period which was like almost a year or something like that, where I had to. I mean, gaming throughout all of my life has been very important. It's always been there. And when I was living here as an immigrant, I was like, okay, like one of the things I kind of prepared myself psychologically was, okay, we're gonna say goodbye to gaming for some time. We don't know how much it's gonna be, but that we're not gonna be able to like purchase a console over there and be buying games. Like, this is not gonna be part of our reality for some time, and it was for some time. Then I was gifted a PS3, a used one, and things kind of moved from there. But so yeah, to finish the story, the second year I got denied the opportunity to use my own money in Spain, which is where I was. Things weren't really going good with his girlfriend because, as I said, immigrant life. She was 5 years older than me, so there was like kind of a gap there, that of maturity, basically of me being not as mature as I should have been or whatever. We also adopted a dog, and the dog, within the first couple days, she caused an accident because she escaped from her leash or whatever. And then I was being harassed by the person's insurance to pay thousands of euros that did not exist. There was also I was also like studying, and I had to like go to somebody for a loan, and I had to like go also to the director and let him like I remember that there wasn't a way to pay in like fractions, like in multiple payments. You had
Yeah.
to like pay the whole thing, and I literally had to go to the director and say like, hey, this thing happened and I don't have a way to pay the whole thing now. I have some savings from last year that maybe I could like little by little. And he agreed. Like he was like nice enough to say
It was
yes.
so insane trying to explain that to people. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yeah, because nobody
Like,
understands. It's like go
yeah,
to the ATM. It's like, yeah.
exactly. It's like, why, if you have the money, then why you just don't give me the money? It's like, because it doesn't work that way where I come from.
Exactly. And it's very frustrating. But I mean, he was nice enough to understand. I was also doing like an internship with a teacher of mine, and I told him like, is there any way that we can turn this into a paid internship? I mean, it doesn't have to be much, but I need to live and eat. And he was also nice enough to give me something. It wasn't much, but I mean, I appreciated it a lot. And this happened also, like the stress of having to deliver a thesis. I was studying digital film, and they asked me to do a written thesis, which is something that I will never forgive them for. I hated it. I did not get anything from that experience other than stress. And as you can think, like this was a very, very stressful year. 2015, the worst year of my life, really. And as I said before, like what kind of got me through that were, of course, friends, of course, things like that. But one of them was games, and the main one I can think of, like I remember the 5 games came out that year, which were that was a great year for gaming, by the way. We had The Witcher 3, we had Bloodborne, Fallout 4, which I know gets a lot of flack, but I hated the third one. I didn't go into New Vegas, but this one I really got into. Batman Arkham Knight, which I also loved, amazing. And then the other one was Metal Gear Solid 5, which, as you know, we love that fucking game, even though nobody likes it.
It was insane. It was a great year. Like, it was one of those times where you're like, I need a PS4 somehow. Like, I need to play all this shit.
Absolutely. And just talking about the immigrant thing, we've touched upon this before, but I just wanted to mention it again, which is there is a line in the game where I don't know if it's Skullhead or somebody says it, or maybe it's, I don't know, somebody says it, but it's like, it's not a nation we inhabit, but our language. And the game like has a lot of things centered around language and the significance and the meaning of
everything is about that, pretty much.
Exactly. And I remember that was very meaningful for me, because one of the things that happens to a lot of people, and I don't judge them at all, I kind of make fun of them, but I don't judge it, which is that when you come here, you start speaking like Spanish people, like with an accent and words. And I have made a conscious decision to not do that, at least not when I'm talking to you, another Venezuelan, because this is the last thing I have. Like there's nothing else that I can say is Venezuelan other than that. So I'm sorry about pontificating for so long. I would love to hear about your story.
So basically, when I moved here, I think that it was such a different life that at any point I was thinking, "Oops, I'm not gonna be gaming for a while." Like, that was kind of like the least of the concerns, but it was kind of like always there. Weirdly enough, I don't know. Like, I knew that I wasn't gonna really get away from it, and something that it felt kind of like, I don't know, weird is that I remember, like, when I was a kid, watching and reading like reviews of games that I couldn't afford, that I couldn't play, either because I didn't have a good enough computer or that I didn't have a console. So I really spend a lot of time just like, watching reviews, reading reviews, what the game was about, and just thinking like, oof, I would like to play this someday. And then after a few years, having the opportunity to play in them, the ones that actually had like good enough gear. And it wasn't until I started university that I started like teaching kids math and stuff like that, and just like trying to. I became kind of like a Adobe Flash instructor, and then it was like I finally could afford my own games, even beyond piracy, which is a big thing in Venezuela.
A big thing in Venezuela.
A big thing, like by regular standards, there's a lot of games that I should have never been able to afford. But
yeah, but that's the thing, that to people who don't understand, like games are or were, I don't know how it's now, but
they're still illegal. Like,
yeah. but they were also prohibitively expensive. Like just buying a
Yeah.
game, it wasn't like $60. When you kind of do the change, it's pretty a
It was
lot more
it was
expensive.
like 3 times the price, a third of your salary if you could find it. So, and some games just never would never get there. And if you order something from Amazon, it would take weeks to get to your place, months. Like
And
you have to
also,
send them to a PO
Christian,
box.
how many dollars a year could we use on Amazon?
I think it was like 400. So
Exactly.
so that was it. And that's kind of like for your credit card. So if you're like if you're a middle, like if a credit card, you don't have a credit card if you're in college. So it's like your family credit card. So you better pick your battles. So
Yeah.
I think that gaming and entertainment, like weirdly enough, it kind of like showcased a little like how well I was doing. Like at some point I was like, okay, I moved out from my family's apartment. We're gonna afford a PS4 between all of us. Okay, I'm gonna buy a big TV when we move from one apartment to the other. And then nowadays it's like, oh, I really want a PS5, and the reason why it took me so long to get it was because they don't exist. Um, and I think that it brings me joy to be able to like buy my own fucking games and play them like at launch date if I want, or like whenever I want to. Like if I don't like this controller, I buy another one. Obviously, I think that like how you spend your money is very different for everyone. But I don't drink alcohol, for example, so I know that I could get like I could drink a beer or something, but I'm drinking it because like I don't, because I rather avoid the discussion of like why you're drinking or not. But I would never, like, if I have to buy like a cocktail that is $20, it's like fuck this, or like getting drunk in the club, or like I don't do any of that. So I also like most of my clothes, like I buy clothes like once a year, and they're like 3 pants, 5 shirts. That's it. And I think that trying to like adjust my budget, I end up like with a reasonable budget for if I want something, I am gonna get it. And I don't think that at any point it's like massively luxurious or anything. Like I'm still very responsible with how I spend my money, because I also think that that helps the market, like, and that helps the industry. Like if I don't buy any other piece of shit that's out there, then in a way, like if more people think that way, then better games also pop up. But I think that it brings me at least personal joy, the fact that I can play to the best of my wallet, um, and have a really cool experience, because I never had that opportunity as a kid. Like it was always very bare bones. I think I talked about this like when I got my first N64. I asked for I think it was FIFA. I don't remember. Like it was. I think it was just like a FIFA game, and I got International Superstar Soccer instead. And I just remember thinking like, okay, whatever, like that's it. Um, but it was always kind of like complex to play, to like to get into the game, or like for example with PC, my PC was always a bit shitty, so
Of
nothing ever
course.
ran like full frames, or like nothing was ever like ultra high textures or anything. Which today, if you want to have like maximum fidelity, it is it is very expensive, but it's kind of like above and beyond the expectation of any game. But back then, the medium experience was still very laggy. Like there were games that were really hurt by not having the proper, the proper the proper settings, just that. So it was always kind of like a bit of a pain in the ass whenever I play kind of like a new game. And not anymore. That's no longer the case. If I want a game, I fucking buy it, and I have, I think, a really good console and a really good TV, and I enjoy it, and I give me a level of satisfaction that I'm not like struggling with that. So it's also like a part of my growth as a person.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that, I mean, what you're describing, I think it's so funny because it sounds like I'm trying to copy you or something, or
Mm.
vice versa. But like what you're describing is, well, maybe it's because we come from the same place. But I mean, I know a lot of people that didn't really have this problem where it was like yeah, like we can't really go and buy anything that we want. It's limited, and I believe that this may have been the reality of most people, because I believe that like most people are rich, and most people, yeah, I don't know.
And also,
But
I think we cared a lot. Like it's
Yeah.
not for me. Like if you tell me, oh, you're not gonna be able to play this game, it's a game I want to play, I'm gonna be sad. It's like I would definitely want to experience that. But if you tell me like, oh, you can't have this shirt because it's $150, then it's like,
Okay.
okay, I couldn't give it
Exactly.
less of a fuck. Like and I think that's the thing with games. Like it's just you were just out of my reach.
Absolutely. But I also think that that may have linking it to literally what we're talking about, which is like how you spend your money and everything. Maybe that is why we are frugal people, because I am also like that. Like I the only thing I spend my money is like food and games. Like there's nothing
Yeah,
else.
that's
Because
pretty much the
I
same.
because again, I'm not copying you, but I don't drink either. I just went to a wedding, like it was a 3 day wedding because they had multiple events, and I had like on the wedding day 2 beers, then I had a Coke, and then I had one glass of wine. And then to me that was like my limit. Then
Yeah, it's
I
the
stuck to
same.
water.
Exactly. I was like, I'm not into this. And I
No.
think that it's also like for me, it's the idea that you walk into. I actually think I bought more stuff, more clothing on Fortnite that I have on the real world for sure. So I think that for me, it's kind of like this idea. If I walk into a Walmart or if I walk into any of these places or like FNAC or like whatever outlet, Best Buy, I don't feel that I need anything. Like I feel like I'm okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I get, oof, I would want to have this huge ass TV. Like I know my TV, I know that I can't really tell the difference between like 4K and 180p. Like it's those type of things that I it just allows me to just enjoy things up to a point, and I think that's very healthy because it just
Super healthy.
you,
Yeah.
you're definitely playing because you like the games. The things that you have are because there are tools to do something else. Like I don't have anything like lying around in my house and I'm like, why do I have this? I mean, there are a few things like in the kitchen for sure, but like tech wise, I think, let me check something because I think the only thing that I actually keep is like an old iPhone. Give me a second.
Oh yeah, sure.
This is kind of like the only old device that I have, which is, it's not an iPhone, by the way. I remember it's an iPod. This is
On
like
iPod. Okay.
an iPod Touch, and this was kind of like the first, like Apple device I ever had, and it's just like this doesn't exist anymore. But it's just
No.
so small, like it just, I haven't like it, and all the other things that are kind of like this. Actually, it's super sticky. I don't know what the fuck happened with this. It's disgusting. But anyway, like that's the type of thing that I'm like, I just try to have more things, like have a less stuff as I can, and that does,
Minimalism. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I'm pretty minimal, but like not, I try not to force it. Like if I need to
Oh
have
yeah, sure.
something, then I have it. Like if I need to have cables lying around, it's like, well, I have a few cables, that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, but I'm also the type of person that I have to like force myself to buy clothes because I will wear shoes until they're like falling off,
Same.
stuff like that. And that's also a little bit like on the other extreme. Like some people can't save money, like because money that comes in, money that comes out.
Yeah.
And I've been like, I don't know, like you know how squirrels they keep like acorns and they stash them somewhere, and sometimes they even forget they have it.
Yeah.
That's kind of me. Like I'm like no.
That's the same
And
thing for me. Like whenever I
yeah,
get money, I'm like, I could spend it, but I could also like buy
not.
not and buy stocks and just like maybe when I'm old I don't need this money. Like I think that way every time, every single fucking paycheck. And I think that's part of like kind of like of a dynamic of like how do you see how do you see like how do you perceive wealth. It's
Hmm.
weird because like it's the fact that we like games also in a weird way, especially single player games, and like it's that you kind of have a limit on like how what wealth means for you. But
Yep.
if it was something else, it was like, for example, people who like expensive alcohol, they can spend hundreds, like even like thousands of dollars every week if they wanted to, in expensive wine and shit like that. But if you like single player games, it's like, I don't know.
That's probably never gonna happen, right? Like,
Exactly.
unless you're like, okay,
Unless you like EA games, then you buy
unless you like EA
you
games,
buy every single
exactly.
microtransaction that exists. But I don't think that there's like that furtive nature to it. And I think that has been, coming back to the topic, I think that has been healthy for me. Like, it's just, I don't see wealth in the same way that other people see wealth. Like, I think that they're like, there are things that are worth spending your money. Like, I like going to concerts. Well, before I like before the pandemic, I like going to concerts, and I think those are a bit expensive. But in general, it's always like, I like this. I like gaming, and it's not that expensive. It's pretty accessible because it's meant to reach millions of people, not just. It's not like Ferraris. That's like, they only expect you to um, buy one Ferrari in your lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I will go off topic for 1 second because I would like in terms of the money spending thing. One of the things that I always think that video games have taught me is research management, because I know it sounds silly, but like every time I pick up a survival horror game, those are like some of my favorite games, right? Like Resident Evil, even The Last of Us, and this happens every single time. I get like ammo and I never use it. I always try to like sneak attack to save the ammo. Okay, cool. I get like, I don't know, rocket launcher ammo, which I will never use until the final boss. I stash it. Then the game ends and I didn't use anything. And
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of
You finish the game with 300 million credits. And you're like, oh
exactly.
shit.
Exactly. And in a way, you could say, like, oh, you're not enjoying the game. But I mean, like, to me, that's kind of enjoying the game, because to me, like, a successful survivalist is the one that, does this. And I apply it to my own spending. Like, for me to approve the decision to buy a game, it's like a whole ministry of bureaucracy in my own brain. Like, I have to submit a form, it has to get stamped by the right people. It's a whole process, and I mean, the
It
only
is.
reason
It
I
is
bought this is because it was 22 euros, and I just got.
because you had to. I think that it's kind of weird because it also, like, it's not cool to like buy all the games. Like, it would be pretty moronic. Like, I think also, like, part of the pride of like being a good gamer, like video game enjoyer, it's that you know which games you buy, like where you put your money. It's like, it's an important um, vote of confidence. So that's also in a way very frugal. Like, some like, also, like, if people say like they platinum every game they buy, I would be like, you're insane. I think that the same applies um, to them when they think that you don't play certain games because you're like, oh, this is not for me, even though you could play it. I don't know. I think that there's like a whole market psychology there that it's going to change. Most games nowadays are becoming free to play, and they can be very exploitative. And if you
Yeah.
want, you can spend thousands of dollars on free to play games that will not help you at all, but they will give you a social status. And that's a thing that also, like, has to be considered when it comes to gaming. That it's a hobby that economically everyone like makes different amount of money, and like, I'm sure like neither you and I have like $2 million like on our credit cards just rolling free every month. So we don't operate with those numbers. But the amount of people that I know that they're like proud that they've never paid for a battle pass, or like, I've never given those guys any money, and then they have played hundreds of hours of their games. It's ridiculously high even today. And in the end, the most battle passes are just $10, and they're the best marketplace, the best bang for the buck that you can
Yeah.
get from those marketplaces. So it's a psychology game all around.
Yeah, 100%. So, unless you have something else that you would like to share, which I would of course welcome, I think we can move on to the final part of the show.
Chan chan chan.
Chan, indeed.
What Yakuza game are you playing?
Well, my friend, I am playing Judgment, which is another kind of
Exactly.
Yakuza game.
How you liking it?
I am, of course, thoroughly enjoying this one. One thing that I kind of ignored throughout 3, 4, and 5, because they were remasters and they're a little bit more rough and stuff like that. And I just cared for the story, basically. I just ignored all the side content, like, and also the side content before, You know how I always tell you that they had this Dragon engine that kind of
Yeah.
changed things for the better? Before that, the side content was shit. Like, truly. You have this. Some people love it, and I respect you. But, like, there is this whole thing around managing host clubs, like, kind of like um, brothels, but
Yeah.
not necessarily you have to have sex.
Hostess,
Exactly.
the hostess. Yes.
Yes, and I hate that part of the game. And I mean, thankfully it's optional and I could ignore it, but I hated it on
Yeah.
all the games because they all have it. So it's horrible. But I remember in Yakuza Kiwami 2, which is after the Renaissance, I got into it. Like I made a couple of side quests and everything. And in this one, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm getting hooked, like doing side quests and getting friends and eating all the food in every bar. Like it's pretty cool.
It's really cool, and the side
Yeah.
quests they're detective cases, so they're fun. They're
Yeah.
I mean they're text only, which I don't like. I think they should have dialogue. Like I don't know what like how much massive that would be for the production, but it feels a bit weaker. That it feels like side quests by
Yeah.
default when they don't have voice acting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do always have some fun twist, which I really appreciate. So and that's why I'm doing them, because one thing that I always talk about with John is that I hate the Assassin's Creed typical fucking annoying side quest that it's like, could you search for my doll, please? I'm a little girl. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that anymore.
No,
But
they always have like a purpose.
yeah, but I do agree that like this game has literally 50 side quests or side cases. If you would reduce that to 20 and have them have voice acting and be better, I would totally be in for that, because I don't have to be. I'm okay with it being shorter if it's better. That's basically
Yeah,
the
that's
thing.
pretty much it. And
But
the
the
whole
main,
friends dynamic is really cool. The
oh
combat is
yeah,
fun. It's
it's
just
awesome. The combat
I-
is
there
amazing.
is something weird that probably your edition has it as well. Is that there are some items that they're infinite and they're kind of like game breaking. So
Yeah, the extracts.
play.
Yeah,
Yeah, I try to play without them.
I've never used them.
But yeah, but like if you start using them, you'll see that they're game breaking and they're infinite, and it's kind of like a weird design decision that those are, because it's kind of like the ultimate edition, like they're kind of like a DLC thingy. One advice is like when the game is ending, go packed up. You will see it because you probably are like just starting, but like when you're in the last mission, it will tell you buy everything. Just buy, go backed up, because the final boss is just it's a difficult to pick that I thought it was a bit irrational.
Okay,
So
like a difficulty curve that was way too high, steep. Or
it's the thing is like you don't have a lot of items in the game, so you can get used to using them, and then in between just you go and get more, and then there's the last stretch, which is a couple of hours. It's
oh,
kind of
okay.
like it's not. I always say like when the I was finishing The Last of Us, it was like 1 a.m. and then I reached California and it was like, oh, this is a nice epilogue. I'm just gonna like finish it right here, and then it was like 6 a.m. and it's like the sun's coming out and I'm like fucking
They
piece of shit game.
they got me.
Because if I'm like, well, this is it, this is the last leg. I'm just gonna. I even remember like, you had kind of like a machine gun, and then you just like, I used it immediately. Like I empty all the bullets, and I was like, ah, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. This is just too long. And I think that it's not the same thing that happened here, but I was like overconfident, like fuck, like it's final mission, and just kick this guy's ass and continue playing the game. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, okay, I'll definitely do. And I mean the main case, we are gonna do a spoiler cast maybe
Yeah.
next week on this, because we're gonna get ready for Lost Judgment, which I already pre-ordered,
Amazing.
and yeah, I mean I'm pretty excited about that one.
I
had
would
this.
usually say never pre-order, but with this too, I would say just pre-order, because they reuse so much that it would be hard for them to fuck it up.
Yes. I mean, in terms of pre-ordering, I am like 99% against it because, as you said, and also I don't know if you are a South Park fan, but there's this quote by Cartman where he says, "The only thing you get by pre-ordering a game is like a dick in your mouth," and they're doing this whole skit about like PS4 versus Xbox One, which was so funny, amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with teams that I not only trust but also literally want to support them. Like I want to give them my money just so they know that there's a fan over here. No, just so they like support.
Yeah,
Just
those are
basically that.
numbers. It just shows
Exactly.
confidence.
That, and I do want to do that. And Ryuga Gotoku Studio is one that I have come to love, as you have all, if you've been listening to this podcast, I've been going to all the Yakuza games, and I'm super excited. This is really, really amazing. So I recommend Judgment. As I said, we're gonna do a spoiler cast probably next week when I'm done with this one, and of course we will do when we're both done with Lost Judgment. We'll do one for that one as well. And the only thing I wanted to say apart from that is, yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about the differences between Judgment and Yakuza, and the bones are the same. Like the combat is very, very similar. You have many like different styles. You have the tiger and then also the stork, I think it is. But the tone is very different. The tone is much more serious. Like there's one thing that happens in every Yakuza game, like every final boss and even before the final boss, where they do the following. They have this very intense conversation, very anime, like very, like that. It doesn't happen here. And then they go like this, and they take off they do like this,
They
and
take
they
off the
take off
shirt.
their shirts and their like
The jackets.
the jackets in the same move with and they always show like the tattoo that they have on the back, because that's like an
the
epic part of
jackets, yeah.
and it's super stupid, but it's part of the thing and you love it.
Yeah,
And this doesn't happen here.
no. I haven't seen it in this one. It's more serious. I think like by looking at the reviews and the other games, it's more serious. Like it's less violent in some aspects, but the way that the attention to detail to everything is just insane. Like the judiciary system, the way that evidence work, cases work, the dialogue, like the reasoning. It's just not crazy. It's not they're not crazy cases. Like this could technically happen. That type of thing. Also, like culturally, they're pretty cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can kind of predict what's happening because I see some of the writings on the wall, but I'm not gonna jump to conclusions. We'll talk about it next
Yeah,
week.
go for it. Go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I mean, the main thing of the game is not like the mystery, but it lines up well with kind of like the emotional journey that the characters go through and how they grow and how they interact. It's pretty TV movie, but also it's pretty cool. And
Awesome.
also it's like I would say it's not the mystery. The mystery drives the game for sure, but the characters are the one that carry it.
Yes, that is the genius of these guys, like the developers.
Yeah.
What are you playing, my friend?
I just finished Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. I finished the second one.
That's it.
I'll play the third one when I need a break. Like I did everything in this game. Like everyone's loyal, everyone's a fucking killer. My ship is pristine. Like the Reaper, I was one shotting enemies at the very end. It was just insane.
Awesome.
I have to say this game it slaps. It's amazing. Like I'm so happy to play it again, and it feels that if you haven't, just please check it out. Champion through the first one. It's crazy that these two games came out on the same generation, like the three of them, because the second one is so much better, like game wise, the animations, whatnot. So I understand if someone were like, the first one is too RPG, like I didn't like it that much, the combat is bland, the scenarios are not that cool, but the second one is just a masterpiece. I'm playing that. I'm replaying Ghost of Tsushima, and I have to say that the director's cut is beautiful. It's 60 FPS. I can't wait to go to the island and see what the DLC is all about. Really, really, really game of the year for me, at least action wise, for last year. Playing it again, and I have to see like what I pick up next after that, because I think it's going to be Death Stranding, which is coming out like in on the 22. I think it's 10 days from now. So
24th, maybe?
24.
Yeah, I think it's
It could
24th.
be. Check out if you haven't checked out the trailer that Hideo Kojima put together with Woodkid's music. It's really cool. I think that even though I think that now I'm on an even better mental state to play this game, like
Mm-hmm.
I now know what the game is fully about. My backlog, I have like grinded through all the normal games, so I guess I could just go into a game where like, okay, I'm gonna just deliver packages here and there and just try to make it about that. But we'll see. There is a good opportunity that I just not for me. but they got me excited. Like they revamped some things. They have new graphics, whatnot. So, but for now, just finished Mass Effect. Gonna keep grinding Ghost of Tsushima. I'm gonna check my backlog because I do have it. I have a Notion backlog with all the games, and I think I have a list of like. I also bought um, um, what's the name of this thing? Why can't I say it here? Metro Exodus,
Mm,
but I'm not that into it. I have to say,
okay.
I need to give it a better chance because so far it's just kind of like a generic FPS, and not in the mood for that in console at least. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, that is great. I think we've reached the end of the show. Please check out Christian's podcast called hammerspacepodcast.com. I mean, that's not the name of the podcast,
That's
but
the
that's where you
URL,
find
but
it.
yeah, but the
Yeah,
podcast is
exactly.
Hammerspace. Go check it out if you know Spanish. If you don't, learn Spanish with me
Yeah,
watching the
of
videos.
course. He speaks pretty slowly. He's pretty didactic, so you'll find some value there, of
Exactly. Only when
course.
I'm mad. Thank you very much for the invitation once again, Juan.
Of course, we love to have you here, and we love to have you, the viewers and the listeners as well. Please share this with your friends, like it, comment down there. We would love to include your feedback. If you have something cool to say, if you have something that would maybe enrich our conversation, we can have a little segment in the next episode where we'll say like, hey, this person said this, and we can kind of discuss it a little bit and include you in the show, have your voice heard,
Amplified.
amplified by our show. And yes, we will be here next week as well, probably with the judgment thing, if I manage to finish it, which I'm confident I will be because I am, as I said, addicted to video games. So see you next episode.